Leo Biasucci. Jason Keogh.
Here.
Rick Knotts is excused. Ashley Pasquale.
Here.
Robert Smith. Chuck Vaughn.
Here.
Scott Welty.
Here.
And Mark Zeef.
Here.
And Councilmember Michelle Lynn.
All right. This is the time for the call to the public. Is there anyone that wishes to speak? Okay. Then we'll move on to the approval of the June 25th meeting minutes.
I make a motion to accept the minutes as read.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, or any discussion or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, we'll move into the staff report, please, Mr. Keen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Recreation After School Program has an average of 486 kids registered during the fall session here. The number's down slightly from last year. In discussions regarding why that number might be down, some of just enrollment in general in the school district is down considerable numbers. So last year we were about 561, so we're down about 90 kids across all 4 schools. The after-school fishing program, in conjunction with Arizona Game and Fish, began on September 10th. We take the participants out to Site 6, and they go through some fish training, and then they get to catch quite a few of them and learn how to catch and release. So it's kind of a neat little program with Arizona Game and Fish. This year's youth performing arts at the after-school program will be performing The Rocking Tale of Snow White. And we are starting at Oro Grande, and their first performance will be October 5th at 4 p.m. Youth flag football and cheerleading games start October 6th at Starline School Fields. The Fall Fun Fair is October 13th. Sarah Ross, our program coordinator, is currently still accepting booth vendors for that event. The Recreation Department is also currently accepting registrations for the London Bridge Days Youth Talent Show, which is scheduled for October 25th at 6 p.m. under the bridge. The Lake Havasu High School swim team has 2 remaining home meets this season, September 26th and October 18th. The Havasu Stingray swim team is reporting a record number of athletes in their program currently. There are over 80 individuals participating in that program. Registration is now open for the October swim lessons. We have 2 new additions to our aquatic offerings. There will be Saturday morning swim lessons, as well as a Saturday morning lap swim from 9:30 to 10:30. Special Olympics will finish their season October 13th in the aquatics area. And our ozone system is currently installation is currently underway and is expected to be completed in early October. So that process is finally coming to fruition. The Mesquite Splash Park will close on October 31st and reopen on April 1st. That is something we're doing a little bit different this year. We just found the usage in the winter months really isn't there to justify some of the cost of maintaining it through the winter. A couple of the community center events, the after school program and Elks soccer shoot is October 4th. The Havasu Community Health Fair is October 6th. The blood drive will be there October 9th through the 11th. The tree dedication ceremony is October 13th. Western Welcome Bunko will be October 15th, and the Arizona Collectibles and Gun Show is October 27th and 28th. A few other events happening in the parks this month. We really get into the busy event season here at the end of September, beginning of October. On September 20th, Councilmember Koch and Councilmember Lane, as well as Park and Recreation Advisory Board member Welty and Zeef, and myself attended the renaming ceremony at the BMX track. The new name will be Lake Havasu City BMX. September 29th, in conjunction with BLM, we'll be celebrating National Public Lands Day with a few projects around the Sarah Park Trailhead That event will run from 8 a.m. till 10 a.m. Concerts in the park over at London Bridge Beach will be every Friday in the month of October, starting at 5 p.m. The annual Pineapple Race will be on London Bridge Beach on October 4th. The IJSBA World Jet Ski Finals will take place September 29th through October 6th, with October 6th being a freestyle event in the channel as well. There is a breast cancer walk at Rotary Park on October 6th. The Fall Fun Fair is at Rotary Park on October 13th. Strides for Hope will be at the property on McCullough and Quarrio on October 13th. The Race of Hope 5K will also be October 13th on the Grand Island Park. So I think people can get a lot of exercise on October 13th. October 18th, 19th, and 20th will be Relics Rods and Run to the Sun. That will take place on McCullough Boulevard as well as the London Bridge Resort and Rotary Park parking lots. The Taste of Havasu is October 23rd at the Sarah Park Rodeo Grounds. The Youth Talent Show is October 25th on the stage under the bridge. The Pumpkin Festival will be October 26th and 27th. There is a location change for this event this year. They will also be utilizing the property on the corner of McCullough and Quarrio, just to try to get a little bit more attention downtown. The London Bridge Day Parade, which has a theme Celebrate the Lake, will be October 27th. October 26th through the 28th will be the Copa Soccer Tournament at both Rotary Park and Cypress. October 28th, the Boy Scouts Pancake Breakfast will be at the stage under the bridge. Also on October 28th is Save a Life Domestic Violence Awareness Walk at Rotary Park. And the Lake Havasu Grand Prix will be October 29th at the Island Track. And wrapping up the month, Fright Night will be on McCullough Boulevard on October 31st. With that, that concludes my report. I'll take any questions.
I just had a question about the decline in enrollment for the after-school program. Is it pretty fair, pretty evenly spread across the school sites, or are you seeing more in one area than the other?
It is across all sites. I was hoping for a true delineation of why maybe with one school site, but it is spread pretty equally between the sites.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Vaughn?
Yeah, can you explain more on since it was in the paper that Sarah Park was being sold to the city, it's about it actually just being conveyed to the city?
We have been working in the process for a little over 5 years of receiving the patent from BLM on that property. The patent does not mean we own the park. We don't buy the park. We don't, really the main difference, as it was explained to me in layman's terms, is we no longer have to ask if we can make a change out there. We just have to let them know. But the patent, we met with BLM today that process still could take up to another 2 years. But again, it is just receiving the patent. We have the same process we went through with Rotary Park to receive the patent there. I don't know if a lot of you guys and or the public know that we don't technically own Rotary Park. It is a piece of BLM land that we do have the patent for. So we'll follow that same process.
And as long as we don't change, like we don't want to try to sell it or change it into like Sarah Park into industrial property like that, we can keep the patent on it forever.
Correct. We still have to follow the RPP.
Any other questions on the staff report? Do you have a question?
I would just like to thank the council members that came out, Mike and Mark, both coming out and seeing what we had changed and the improvements that we had done at the BMX track. and what we have going on there. So we appreciate that very much.
All right, any other questions? Okay, thank you. So election of officers.
So here first, before we get started, Ms. Pasquale, I'd like to thank you deeply for your last 2 years of serving as chair to this board. You have done a wonderful job. Greatly appreciate your time and effort. And at this time, we will need to select a chair as well as a vice chair for the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board for the next year, correct? The term will expire after it's the first meeting after the fiscal cycle, so the July meeting.
Well, thank you. It's been a joy. It's super fun. So whoever's interested. And are we okay to take this action under the communications section of the agenda? Because it says election, so we can make the election. Okay.
Yes.
So at this time, I will open it up for nominations for chair. Would anyone like to make a nomination?
Well, I'd like to nominate Scott Welty for chair, if he'd be so obliged. I'm not sure how he feels about that.
He's not speak, so I don't know if I should do it.
I would second that nomination. Would you accept it? I think we have to vote first, right?
He does need to accept before
Accept
we would
first
vote,
before we vote.
or at least be willing to put his name in the hat.
I'd be willing to, yes.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for chair? Okay, then I believe we take a vote. Okay, all in favor of electing Mr. Welty as chair, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we will take nominations for the vice chair position.
I would like to elect Jason,
Mr. Keogh.
Mr. Q, for that.
I second that.
Okay, great. Would you accept the nomination?
I will accept.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Okay, all those in favor of electing Mr. Keogh as vice chair, say aye.
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 Any opposed? I think everyone voted aye. Congratulations, Mr. Vice Chair. So do I turn it over now?
Well, that's awful antsy to get out of that seat, huh?
Okay, thanks. All right. Well, thank you and congratulations. Looking forward to switching seats. Okay, the next item is a public hearing and presentation on the submission of community investment projects.
Sorry about that. So these are the projects that I have chosen to be considered through the process. And I just wanted to bring them here. We can discuss them, talk about them, decide if there's any additional that might run up the flagpole a little bit to see how that process might play out. Again, each department is asked to submit different ideas for projects over the next 4 to 5 years, and then those projects are all lumped together and prioritized based on funding, community need, whether or not there are contractual obligations that we would need to abide by and fulfill. So I'll go through the ones that I have, again, asked to be considered. The Aquatic Center HVAC systems. A complete evaluation of the HVAC systems for the Aquatic Center was performed in fiscal year 17 and 18. Based on the recommendations from these evaluations, Dehumidification units will be installed, replacement of HVAC in locker rooms, installing new exhaust fans in chemical and mechanical rooms, and adding new controls for all the units. Upgrading these systems will decrease the humidity and temperature in the aquatic center and increase user comfort. That project initially was estimated about $1.8 million. The Aquatic Center, Community Center thermal storage. Again, a complete evaluation of the HVAC system for the Aquatic Center was performed in fiscal year 17 and 18. Based on those recommendations from the evaluation, a thermal storage tank will be placed outside the building to hold heat produced during the day by the solar system and be able to be utilized at another time. Installation of this tank should reduce energy costs by heat produced from the solar array and not be wasted. That project comes in, construction costs around $250,000.
Mr. King, can I ask questions on those two?
Sure.
Just the cost estimates, were those also from the analysis conducted? What year was that?
Just this last year.
Okay.
They were. These figures are really ballpark on all of these, and our engineering department will, if they were to be selected to move forward, we'll really go through them with a fine-tooth comb. I know one of the costs that are not associated with currently in any of these projects would be the construction management portion of the project. Some of those we do handle in-house. Some they decide that it's easier to add that or hire a third party to do that. So they'll work with those numbers. So these are just really almost a placeholder just to kind of get an idea of what we're looking at. But those numbers were taken directly from that evaluation.
Okay, thank you.
The Aquatic and Community Center renovation. Design work was completed in fiscal year 17-18 to modify the entryway and main entrance to the facility. Creation of 2 party/meeting spaces off the existing upper deck in the pool area. Upgraded locker rooms and renovation of the office space. This facility is 24 years old, and this renovation will improve the look and feel of the facility as well as add additional rental space. That project estimate, again, through that design work was $2.8 million. Mesquite Park restrooms and shade structure. The Mesquite Park splash pad opened in 2016 and has operated since with portable restrooms at this facility. Permanent restrooms will eliminate the monthly rental fee of the portable restrooms as well as add to users' comfort. Shade is non-existent in Mesquite Park, and a shade structure will help park visitors be more comfortable while watching their children. The estimated cost of that project is approximately $300,000. Dick Samp pickleball courts and parking improvements. A pickleball facility was designed at Dick Samp Park to include 16 courts to be built in phases. 4 pickleball courts were built at Dick Samp Park in 2016. Demand has risen for the next set of courts to be built. With adding additional amenities to Dick Samp Park, the parking will need to be improved as the lot becomes very full during activities taking place at the park. The project is estimated at $150,000. And the last one I submitted is phase 1 of Sarah Park ball field improvements. This includes updating the existing fields, constructing 4 softball/little league fields, and 2 additional soccer fields. So basically what we've been talking about for many years on phase 1. So we re-entered that project is estimated at approximately $20 million. And those are the projects that rose up the flagpole for me that again I submitted for consideration in the CIP process this year. With that, I will take any questions or comments.
I'll turn it over to the board members first. Mr. Vaughn?
Yeah, on the aquatic center, on the HVAC, how long has it been since we went to solar with, at this facility and all that and down the aquatic center? Has it been, has it been 5, 6 years?
I think you're in that ballpark, yes.
Okay.
Between 5 and 10.
Didn't the company come in, because I remember, seemed to me that I remember that they came in and replaced a bunch of air conditioners and put new controllers in and stuff like that at that time. Are they talking about replacing those at the aquatic center?
No, those are all on the community center side. Currently, we don't have any HVAC on the natatorium side. So in the pool area itself, it's really just kind of fans blowing air around. So this would dehumidify the area as well as add some cooling to that space.
Okay. The other thing you was talking about, the improvement to the entrance in that, is that wide area that you kind of walk through before you get into the front door? You know, there's kind of an area, it's almost a wasted space there on the, between that and the condos. In that area between the parking lot where you park and then that area right there? Is
Really, the roadway would now come in over where the old carousel used to be.
Okay.
And so the main parking lot would become the actual entrance to the building. I know there's a lot of confusion on what is the front and what is the back of that building. But the main entrance is intended to be more on the Rotary Park side and not on the highway side. So this would add a roadway to come in over where the old carousel used to be.
Right.
And make that, utilize all that space as an entryway in that foyer area out front. That is where the 2 additional party/meeting rooms would be added.
Okay, because I was thinking that if you was talking about that, so the area I'm talking about, if you walk in and go to the right where the auditorium is, in the stage side, it would be on the outside of that stage. You ever thought about, you know, building there to make more room too?
We did, in the original, we've had several studies done on that building. In one study, that area is actually expanded to be a second gym. I
Okay.
believe is the area you're talking about, right behind the stage,
Right.
Going into the parking lot. Due to some cost considerations, we eliminated that portion in this particular plan.
Okay. On the, there's no, I see there's nothing in there about Body Beach in that. Have they just, are they waiting for the city to do maybe a purchase of that first, or before we put anything into our CIP, or?
There,
And what about the area where the new state park is? The lower section, that's gonna be controlled by us. That's, from what I understand, at the water, they're gonna make a beach area and stuff there too, right?
the by the water area would be controlled by state parks.
Okay.
The Water Resource Center is an area of conversation that's more on our property, on the city's property up towards the highway. But that CIP would be coming from a different department. As far as Body Beach, there is money in, I'm struggling, I believe it's this fiscal year to negotiate with the state in purchasing a portion of that land.
Okay. The last thing, I'll let somebody else talk, but the last thing is with the Prop 49 going through, and we're having, with a new thing, do you see them raising our budget items so we can get more of these CIP things done?
I don't have a good feel for that yet, Chuck.
Okay.
It's still really early in the process. We haven't really started talking yet budget-wise. That will come in January with the retreat with City Council and kind of some of their directions. So
Okay.
still a little early on that one.
So if you get any inkling about it, let us know.
We definitely will.
Could you remind us or remind me of the process of, so you've presented these options, are they prioritized did you prioritize them? And what's the next step in determining what gets funded?
So the next step is the engineering department will meet with the assigned departments to discuss and refine project scopes and cost as necessary for all proposed projects and assist with the completion of the CIP project detail forms. Completed forms shall then be submitted by the department to the assistant city engineer, and that will happen by November 5th. So really, they'll kind of take a look at them, see if they're legitimate projects, and we'll meet and kind of talk through some of the financials, what are the priorities, and then the administrative services director will analyze the city's ability to fund and support these major expenditures by December 7th. And then during the retreat, we'll obtain a direction from city council and city manager.
Okay. So all the departments have gone through the same process, and then is there a certain percentage? Is there a pie and everyone gets a piece of it, or do you have any?
I think it's really we all put together a wish list and submit them, and from there it really, one is what can we afford, and two, what are priorities based on again, contractual obligations, necessity. I know if you open the CIP book, you'll see a lot of flood control and wash stabilization. Well, those are funds from particular accounts that we have to spend. We are under some contractual obligations, say with building the roadway to the Havasu Riviera. So those types of things that we're already under contractual obligation to come first, and then they look at whatever's left, and kind of all the executive staff will meet and discuss really who really needs what, and can we wait a year and police buy a few extra cruisers, or kind of how does that work?
Okay, and then one more question, I'll turn it over to you guys. So it seems like the process is pretty staff-driven. And the only opportunities for public input is really through this board, and then not until January when it's made into a more of a public format through the retreat or at a council meeting.
Correct. And throughout my last 2 years, really, this is the first time I've gone through this process. So the reason that I picked these projects was because of the public input that I've received over the last 2 years, and this board has been part of those discussions and hearing from our local residents and what projects they feel are important to them.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Keel.
Thank you. I may have missed this, but did you answer the question about whether these are prioritized, if you gave them to us in order?
I did not prioritize them, and
Okay.
I have not yet.
Okay. I'm having a tough time wrapping my head around how do we go about doing that? It seems like everything in this, all the processes you mentioned are kind of fluid, We're not sure exactly how we would prioritize this, because we're all over the board as far as value of each of these
Financials,
things. And then at some point this goes in front of the city council and city leadership, and gets racked and stacked with everyone else's. So how will we have another opportunity to as all those other projects come into view, to see where we are and what we ought to try to fight for?
I'm not sure, because this is kind of my first year going through this process. I have not seen what any of the other directors have submitted, so where anything would rank out. I think if we get to a point where you're going through the CIP process and you have $12 million, and we're down to the last 500,000 for that particular year, what projects could fit in there? So that's one of the reasons that I made them a very wide array as well. And Michelle, you might be able to add a little bit more on that.
So I know that we have a new city manager, so the process may change. My suggestion, if you have some concerns, I would bring it to Mike now. So when Mike goes in to see Jess, our city manager, this will not necessarily come in front of the council. Actually, I don't think I've seen it in the 4 years I've been there that would come in front of us and the council prioritize that. That's not our job to do that. What it will come to us, whether or not we want to go forward with those things, but what I've seen in the past, but that was also with our old city managers, it was staff and city manager's decision on prioritizing. So if this board wants something prioritized, I would believe this would be the time to tell Mike this is what our thoughts are, so Mike can take that forward. That's just my opinion on it. But we have a new city manager, there's new council members, so the retreat is gonna be a little bit different this year, but I would probably get it in before January, if that
Thank you.
helps.
I guess my concern is we're back to Sarah Park too, which was kind of already in the works process, and sounds like we're starting over on budget with that.
Yes, there was no money ever funded for Sarah Park other than the design work. So that money or that request will be is being put back into the CIP for prioritization, as well as then council can give us the direction at the retreat. Really, the way Sarah Park is going to get funded would be through, more than likely through a loan or some other funding mechanism. But that would be a decision that the council would have to make. But I wanted to get that back into the book and up in front of everybody again.
Do you say that because of the large amount?
Correct.
Okay. Councilwoman?
Mike, I believe that there is in this budget coming up, there is a portion put aside for an area at Sarah Park. I don't have the CIP in front of me, but there
Correct.
is.
In next year's CIP,
It's
there
not the
is
whole 20 million, but
I believe it's 2.75
close to
million.
$3 million to do, I believe, the first set of softball.
One field. And we really don't know what that looks like
But
yet.
that is in the budget, for sure, that part is.
Okay. Probably thanks to some of your advocacy.
I had a question concerning the fields. I remember some conversation coming up about maintaining them. That would be the big cost. And I thought, has anyone looked at AstroTurf versus grass? If you guys have looked at that in presenting it to the CIP.
Those numbers were looked at originally. Just the sheer space, the price is very high in an upfront cost. It will pay for itself eventually, but you could be talking 20 to 30 years to pay off the difference of that upfront expense.
Another question I had was just the Mesquite Park. Is that also you talked about closing down the splash pad portion of that from October to
We'll reopen April 1st.
April? Okay.
Yes.
So not even for spring break time then in March?
I guess we hadn't thought about that, but that is definitely something very,
It's a nice
very fluid.
for local, yeah.
Sure, exactly.
I'm just trying to put if you're comparing, and that was a smaller amount budgeted for that, but the shade structure and the
Correct.
restroom facilities, and it would be on that end of the park, which is only going to be open for a portion of the year.
Correct. We would leave the restrooms open. There is a small playground
Okay.
there as well.
That's right. Yeah. Okay.
Would you, one sec, Chuck, would you consider keeping it open longer once those facilities are in?
We have run it the last 2 years, year round, and just really hasn't seen the usage during the winter months that again justify the chlorine, the staff going up 3 times a day to check pool chemicals. And it's a process, and we don't see the use.
Makes sense. Yes, Mr. Bond.
Yeah, Mike, the things that you added up it's like somewhere between $4 and $5 million, right? Is what you got so far, the 2 point something and 1 point something and the 300,000 and the CIP that you're gonna,
We're probably with Sarah Park in there closer to,
not counting Sarah Park, I'm just, everything else. 20 million, yeah,
probably between about $5 million.
about $5 million. What was our CIP budget for the last couple of years?
That number differs year to year, and I do not know what this year's total was.
Okay. They were talking about Sarah Park, $3 million or whatever they put up. Whatever happened to the money that we borrowed? Was it 12 or 14 million dollars? Did we put that into other projects for state parks? Or not state parks, but for our parks? Start Sarah Park. Start the ball fields and everything in there.
I believe the money that was borrowed was utilized to pay down some of the public safety retirement system, their pension debts. So that was the money that was borrowed and then repaid to work around the spending limitation. But so far, we haven't borrowed any money to fund Sarah Park.
Because that's the way, everybody was talking about it. They borrowed this money to start on Sarah Park. And so they utilized it someplace else. I don't think a lot of people know about it. So
I am unaware that the statement was ever made that it was going to be utilized to start Sarah Park.
Well, maybe it was around the same time they were talking about remodeling Sarah Park. And then they said, well, we're going to borrow 12 million or 14 million or whatever it was. And people just put the two together. They're going to put that much money into Sarah Park. So the ball fields that you were talking about, do the existing ball fields that are out there. And then the other ones that you're talking about, the other ball fields and the 2 soccer fields, is that going to be on the racetrack side? Is that what you're talking about over there?
They would be on the west side of the racetrack. Our existing fields sit on the east side. We would update those fields, and then the new fields would sit on the west side of the racetrack.
Right.
Madam
Yes.
Chuck, I don't think there was ever any discussion about borrowing money for Sarah Park. Are you confusing it with Prop 409 possibly passing and the money that would be lifted for that? Because there wasn't any money that I believe was going to be borrowed for Sarah Park.
This was when did they do that? 2 years ago they borrowed the money? Something like that? This was at least 2 years ago.
I don't recall
it was around the time when they were talking about remodeling Sarah Park, and they thought it was only going to cost a total cost of like $12 million, and then all of a sudden it come up to the figure of 20-something million dollars.
That's
the total
correct.
cost.
That's correct, but I don't believe there was any discussion about borrowing money.
Okay, so it was around the same time that they were borrowing that money. I think that people just kind of got it confused that that's what was going to be done with the money, even though it wasn't stated that way.
Okay. So I'm going to redirect us back to the community investment projects that Mr. Keene presented. Does anyone have any additional comments or questions, or do you want to voice your thoughts of priorities?
I was hoping that Mr. King would be open to a couple ideas on his CIP improvement before we prioritize the list he gave us, possibly. I've noticed the front sign, if you're going to do work on the building, the aquatic center sign is now covered by parking spots. I'm in a lower car. I have a 4-inch lifted Jeep that barely can see it sometimes when I go by, and I've noticed that I don't even know what the building is unless I know what the building is, and I thought maybe you could revamp that and put on a new, I know you use an empty space for banners, gun shows, thing like this. Is there a way that you could implement a more visible sign to the community rather than just the one off the highway when you do your,
Yeah, in the
improvement?
Aquatic Community Center renovation package, it's a full facelift. The building would look completely different.
okay, cool, thank you.
Mike, the park up there where the splash pad is, and they want to put the restroom in there. Getting rid of those, a lot of people don't like outhouses,
Agreed.
portable toilets and stuff like that. So that would be, and since it's such a low cost, and from what I understand, the bulk of that 300,000 was going to be for restrooms, from what I understand.
Yes, it's kind of funny. We rebid, this was once a project, and we rebid it about 3 times. And we finally came to the conclusion a restroom simply cost $250,000. And while that's sometimes tough to swallow when you build a whole house for that cost, that is the cost that we were getting back.
Yeah, but you're not getting a vandal-proof house for that.
Very true.
I had another question. Are you guys looking at maybe possibly improvements to parks within your CIP budget also, or just is this just for the aquatic center?
I guess some of the parks would be in capital outlay. I guess I would question what if you have an idea for a additional.
Just last year when I was doing a survey, I noticed there was some sidewalk missing on the west end of London Bridge Beach, and we had sent some pictures in to the office, and maybe something was going to get done. I wasn't sure, but I thought this would be a good time to put some money aside to fix those sidewalks for wheelchair access, bicycle access. I didn't know if you can do that within this budget.
It would probably not need to be a CIP. It would be just capital outlay.
Okay. And then one more question. I had people asking me about the restrooms being closed at London Bridge Beach over holidays. I tried to give them an answer like, there's too many people using it to facilitate it the correct way. And then someone said in secondhand news that, oh, it's an old system, it can't handle it.
Correct.
And I thought, well, this would be a good time to maybe fix those public restrooms.
Those projects are in the work currently this year to replace both all the bathrooms at London Bridge Beach as well as Rotary Park. It is a flow issue. They can't handle the demand. The pipes are simply too small and they back up. And so that is the reason why we do close them during busy holiday weekends or events and put out porta potties instead.
No, that's terrific.
So-
I'll be able to
so
let
that
people
will get
know at
done.
least. And then we'll get new toilet seats, I'm sure, then with the new bathrooms, because some of those were chafed up pretty bad this summer. Can't afford the toilet seats.
Well, personally, I think, of course, Sarah Park is that shining star that will be used by local residents, but will also help our economy and be able to bring in tournament play and also be used and enjoyed by residents. So that's great. And I also think the aquatic center is used heavily. And the one complaint you consistently hear is the humidity, and you're trying to hold family gatherings or birthday parties, and it's just really gross unless you're underwater. So that I think will be a huge benefit to the community as well. So I think that, and then the Dixamp parking issue, I'm sure the residents on that side of that street will very much appreciate that, as well as the safety. There's people parking all kinds of areas and kids running around when you have baseball games, and I'm sure with the pickleball tournaments they're trying to bring in as well. So I think they're all worthwhile projects. That's my personal opinion.
Councilwoman Lynn, what is your opinion as far as what you think could be passed in this presentation of the? Yeah, it's a little forward, but I was also thinking.
I would think that's a little early. She hasn't seen anything else from streets or from.
Okay. Because in the all in
anywhere
all, and
public
that's probably
works.
getting back to Chuck's question, what were the last numbers? You
Yeah.
know, is it feasible to look at a $5 million for the first 3 projects? Sure, go ahead, but we really want to get started on Sarah Park. Is a $25 million even feasible?
Again, I
For
think, and this is my personal opinion, but I do believe if we are to go forward with Sarah Park, it will take an alternate funding source. So that one is kind of a little bit separated from the rest of these projects. And again, I don't know what police, fire, and or public works have submitted, so I don't know what those look like and where we might stand on any of those.
If you look at the CIP budget from this year compared to last year, it's entirely different. So things can change. They can change within 6 months. I had a question though on the pickleball parking. So are there thoughts of putting in more pickleball courts in?
Yes, in this proposal, it would be improved parking as well as 4 additional courts.
And for additional, okay, perfect,
Correct.
thank you.
There is a master plan to Dick Sant Park that'll include those 16 courts as well as the parking area. So it's kind of already designed out.
Yes,
I'm
Mr.
sorry,
Z.
it's like tennis ball. I mean, tennis ball back and forth here. So you're saying that the Parks and Rec this budget will allow you to do more parking up there, more parking spaces and a parking lot. So to that point, I was thinking, oh, well, can't we do that to the London Bridge Beach parking lot? Is that our property to actually get into expanding? We've had many problems with parking down there since I've lived here, and I was just wondering, do you have the power to help, or is that a city thing? Would that be a different budget to expand the London Bridge Beach parking lot?
My understanding is that as a city, we don't own any additional land around London Bridge Beach parking. So therefore, we can't really build on it. We do at Dick Sant Park, it is master planned for that other additional parking lot or parking spaces to be there.
So if we did want to improve parking spaces, we would have to give way on sidewalk space, camp host space, dumpster loading zone space, dead space on the west end of the pump house. I could probably go 6 or 7 spots in London Bridge Beach where we can, expand within the city property. We've looked at it before with engineering for that access, extra parking for handicapped, and I guess something come back and the engineer said, no, we can't go in and build an access road. We'll have to settle for this other stuff. But I would like to see a revisitation to get something done. We have most of our visitors visiting the London Bridge Beach that come into town, in my opinion, and I don't want it to be shabby.
It is a very crowded parking lot at this time. There's just not enough space to warrant a project to that scale. There just isn't an area that we can expand into right now.
Who's in charge of deciding what areas can be expanded into that? I was just wondering what department would that be in case we wanted to do follow-up.
As far as if we wanted to purchase land?
No.
I guess the majority of that land around there is, it would be state.
The side of the
State
pump
trust.
house, the west end of the pump house, there's a couple basketball courts worth of space, that we could develop for parking. It's dead sand area. It's between the Patel private property and the pump house. It's a big area. I could probably add 2 picnic eating areas, a playground area, and an amphitheater if I wanted to, matching the other side of the building in that small area before the state land starts. And I'm getting a lot of, I'm going to start writing down the references from the handicap companies or the wheelchair service people, bringing people down and having no access, and they're unloading in the parking lot. It's narrow, it's dangerous. I just would like to see something more unloading zones, more emergency vehicle parking. There's none of that down there.
We did just add two loading zones.
2 loading
by
zones.
the recommendation of this board.
Yeah, and we don't have a sign for that, so, and the roads are still striped, so half the tourists would probably be confused as to whether or not that would be a spot they could unload.
Okay, I'll definitely look into
All
that
those
signage.
things, just, something,
Yeah, that's good.
parking. That's all. Thank you, Mike.
Sounds like a good opportunity for a private developer too, if they want to pay for parking. Mr. Vaughn?
Yeah, Mike, I don't know if, that strip of land that we had talked about above Rotary Park, and that, whatever he was gonna do that, would that been in your CIP? We should know he's gonna put half basketball courts or whatever. at
Yeah,
Rotary?
I don't think that's going to raise to the dollar amount of a full CIP.
Okay, so it just wouldn't even cover under this, so, okay,
I don't think so.
all right. Well, I didn't know you was talking about half basketball courts, and, they're not cheap.
Yeah, and we've also identified a possible another area, and this is getting a little bit off topic. But a different area that we might be able to add some basketball courts around the community center very inexpensively.
And one more thought too, just to not let Sarah Park be put on the back burner because it's such a large project, but also considering how it can be continued to be broken down in stages and just included in every CIP over time until it's done.
No, and I think those are the conversations that will go on, is how can we break that apart. Obviously, some of the infrastructure has to go in originally, and some of that just in order to have the restroom facilities, the water there, the sewer there, the electrical already there in that first portion. So, but there's all kinds of ideas being talked about and thrown around of how can we make Sarah Park happen.
Okay.
Seems like it was about a year ago we had that conversation about and maybe I'm wrong, but we heard about phase 1 of Sarah Park would be like not a whole lot of usable area, but it would cover a lot of that infrastructure. I remember specifically the cost for to level everything off was pretty considerable, but I think that was included in what we heard about as kind of the phase 1. Yeah. So is that plan?
And that is basically what I've resubmitted is that phase 1 project.
Okay. Yes. No, go ahead.
I guess in my consideration of these two is what can the city recoup as far as revenue, and what ones will bring in revenue. And obviously the aquatic center needs help. It's old and we all know it, and it'd be nice to get it updated and stuff like that. But things like, bringing in the tournaments for pickleball, or having Sarah Park bringing in the tournaments, we're bringing in revenue for the city, and these eventually will, pay for themselves versus, I guess, putting a shade structure in a bathroom at another park. Just my thoughts.
I do believe that our admin services director, as they go through them all, she does take those into consideration of some return on investments as well.
Great.
One quick question, really quick, about teen break. Did we have to put money in the CIP for next year's teen break if we were going to bring it back? I know that was put on hiatus.
That it would not be part of a community investment program.
Okay.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yeah, under phase 1 at Sarah Park, because I know we don't have any affluent out there. Have they added that cost to possibly put, I know they were talking about bringing the water over from the deal about partnering with another department, with like the water department or something, and maybe splitting the cost to get that affluent over there. Because they do, if they're gonna put all this stuff in there, they need to put affluent out there. It'd cost us a fortune to run,
Yes.
to just water everything with straight water.
Correct, and everything is built with effluent in mind for the future going forward, and including to be able to switch over to effluent at a later date. Currently, that's still in a little bit of a longer term plan to get effluent on that far south of town.
I was gonna say, if they would get in with the water department CIP and say partner with them for that, where it wouldn't cost us the total amount.
Right, and that's why all these projects are looked at by our engineering department to see if they can piggyback on each other.
Sorry, I'd like to ask if there are different stages that this will go through and probably things will get cut out. So at the next meeting in October, if we could have this on the agenda for another discussion, I think you said at that point it would be turned over to the admin services group.
Yes, the engineering department will meet with all of the department directors by November 5th. So if I've had my meeting with them, I'll definitely update the board on where those projects stand and kind of what we're looking at on those.
Is that a fair place to stop, or did you have other comments?
Were you thinking that we'd have more of a prioritization lined out by October's meeting for Mike to go into the November 7th meeting? And, you know, in case you needed help prioritizing?
Well, I think you said it will be by November 7th, so it could be before our next meeting.
It could
don't
be,
know?
yes.
Okay. But it's still a continued conversation, because even at that point, then there's another step by
Correct,
December something you
This
said.
and this is very fluid. As we have seen, there's been projects included in 4 years down the road that get shifted around based on need and/or get pulled out because a bigger project came up that we did need to take care of a failing street or a failing bridge or something to that effect. So it is a very fluid process. The council really approves a 1-year budget, and they approve a 1-year CIP with that.
Do you have another comment?
Well, yeah, just another comment. I feel like I want to know more. I want to know more about what else is going into this, who all's coming to the party. Because when I look at these things, you listed out six CIP projects. To me, 3 of them. I mean, when we talk about the aquatic center, HVAC, the thermal storage thing is kind of makes me scratch my head. But if we lump all 3 of those together, I believe that. I mean, you hear a lot of people talk about the HVAC, the challenges in the aquatic center, and the renovation for the rest of the building, I think, is vital. But to me, it looks like that's that's a $5 million project to me, and a $20 million project at Sarah Park, and then a couple that we can probably just squeeze in if we ask nicely enough.
Right. I pulled those 3 at the aquatic center and community center apart, just in the realm of in case there was the availability of a couple $100,000 here, a couple $100,000 there. Exactly. So that's the reason that they are pulled apart a little bit.
Yeah, I get that. I just wondered if there's a convenience in getting it all done. You know, if there's some savings in doing all that work, to put it out or bid for it all at once.
And that can certainly be a conversation as we move forward with the engineering department.
Right.
Did you think you might want to have a plan B for Sarah Park for 10 million instead of 20 million, just if they could squeeze something, half of your development plan up, maybe? I was thinking along the lines of Ashley's idea or the chairwoman's idea.
Yeah. I think, did you address that? It's most of that money is going towards infrastructure with the grading and then putting in all the utilities.
Correct. A lot of it is the infrastructure, but those conversations are going on of, okay, if we did have $3 million, what could we do? So
Okay.
there are additional conversations going as splitting that project even more.
Okay, good. So this is kind of a continued conversation. And yes.
One
go
last
ahead.
thing. Is there a chance we could get, I would love to even see those slides that we saw on all the Sarah Park development. I remember it included kind of like an overview, like a physical overview of all the areas and what was proposed to go where. Is there a way we can get that information?
Sure. I can definitely email that out, just kind of a aerial overshot of what it looks like.
I think it was a slide deck. I mean, we had a full presentation about what was going to happen at Sarah Park, and I don't remember exactly when it was. But if we could even just revisit the the minutes from that meeting. I mean, I remember
Certainly.
looking at slides here and on the screen.
Sure.
I think that'd be pretty helpful for
Okay.
some
Yeah,
of us.
I can definitely get that presentation from Jeremy and get it out to everybody.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, that's a good question. Request. Okay. You don't have to be. Okay. All right. Appreciate you bringing that to us for some discussion. Hopefully we helped.
No, you certainly did.
But I do think it's important. This is a really good opportunity to, um, get feedback. I guess we're representing the public at this point, but to put it out there and make sure that people have the opportunity to voice their thoughts.
Exactly. And with that, this is a public presentation.
Yes, thank you. Do we have any comments from the public?
Hi, my name is Doug Carr. I'm the Vice President of the Pickleball Association. It's good to hear Mike talk about pickleball in a parking lot, because we definitely need a parking lot when baseball's going and pickleball is going. You know, you're parking on the street, quarter mile, half mile down the road. But one thing about pickleball, it's up there on the old dump. And if I'm not mistaken, part of CIP budget comes from the trash. If I'm not mistaken, some of the funding for CIP. Looking back years ago, I think that's what So anyways, but it's the old dump. And pickleball is up there because it's on concrete and you can't put grass there where the old dump was. So you couldn't water that. So that's a good spot to put concrete slab and play pickleball. Except the wind blows up there. But anyways, it's good to know that we're doing that. And Sarah Park came about 4 or 5 years ago with the field assessment study. It went on for years. And it's a shame they didn't put pickleball in that assessment of parks, to bring in tournaments to fill the hotels. And that's what that was part of. And that's why they're building 4 parks. And there's not very many softball fields for adults here anyways, is what I heard. I used to play, but I got a bad shoulder, but I used to play pickleball. Anyway, don't understand that. Where am I going with this? It's good to hear that, that we're really thinking about pickleball because there's not enough courts in town, even though Los Lagos got some, the Islanders got pickleball. There's just not enough courts when everybody comes in for the wintertime to play pickleball. You're waiting in the aquatic center. A lot of times has so much stuff going on, we can't play there. And he's really been good at letting us have it a couple times this week, every week. We get like six times that people can show up and pay their $3 and play at the aquatic center. And we have 16, 20 people playing in the morning. I don't know how many was down there today, but and then we have the Arc. There's three days a week that's been playing for years, and so there's a lot of time there. But also our association, hopefully will come up with 20-30% of the cost of the new courts for new pickleball. So I don't think you'll have other groups, the softball association, coming up with 20% for $20 million for new ball fields at Sarah. But it's good to hear, and glad to hear you guys discussing it. And it's good to be back after my 3-month hiatus. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Welcome back. Any other comments on this discussion?
Is that something that we have tentatively going into Sarah Park, or pickleball courts? Is that something that this gentleman would like to see up there, is pickleball courts at Sarah Park?
There are no pickleball courts designed at Sarah Park. Our pickleball facility is really all designed up at Dick Sant Park, and that was decided on a few years ago.
Is that what the gentleman's question was, to see if we can get that pickleball courts implemented into the Sarah Park project?
No, I originally, years back, looked at the site across from the dog park. It's actually slated for a community rec area across the street from that. And that would have been a great place to put pickleball. It's right by the highway. You don't have to go through the housing to get to, like you do have to get up to Dick's Amp. And it's a good location. And then I don't think as much wind would be there either. But that was a good spot, but not where the baseball fields are not. And then there's London Bridge Beach that I tried to get. But, and some people still play there. They go and chalk it. And then, hopefully no basketball people come in the morning, and which they don't usually. The kids don't come. And so you'll see some people down there. We've chalked the lines. It would be nice to paint them, but
So there's no pickleball court at London Bridge Beach either?
it's just a basketball court.
Oh.
We go and we chalk them and put a portable net in, and
I see you guys playing now.
And I like that you did get your one parking spot to unload, for the dog. I thought that was good. But there's other places to put pickleball courts because, it's nice to have all 16, it'd be great. I don't know who's going to run it. I'm not going to run a big tournament like that. I mean, that's a lot of work. I ran the last one here and we had about 120, 130 people play.
Wow.
And that's another thing, not having enough pickleball courts.
Right.
We don't even have a league because we can't, go up there and play. If someone else wants to play, we got to, leave the court, so we can't reserve any time. So we're just kind of hitting and miss. We do some stuff up there, and we do use the courts, but if someone wanted to play, then we kind of let them play. It's not, we hope they'd just leave or watch us, But we have done a lot of improvements. We've got 3 shade structures. We got 2 benches that are chained up now. I really didn't think they were going to steal, but someone wanted to chain them up, and the city had chained them up for us. And then we got some sun sails that I bought. I haven't put them up yet, but when we start playing up there, it's in between the two, so we'll have pretty good shade up there. That's one thing up there. There's no trees or anything, I'm all for more pickleball courts throughout the whole city eventually, but it does take money.
Well, back to your point, it's something that you said your association would pay up to 20 or 30%.
Yeah. We have
80 or 90%. No, I'm joking.
We have over $30,000. I don't know what the fund is for the courts, and we've already put probably not quite 10,000 up there ourselves. So we're spending 15%, 20, 30. I don't know if I'll get 30. I'm not coming out of my pocket, but I donated some. But maybe we can name them after someone. If they want to donate $5,000, we'll have Joe Smith's court or something. But anyways,
Thank you. Thank you
those
for
are
that.
fantastic ideas. I really enjoyed your presentation.
Mr. Vaughn?
Mike, what was the budget, the CIP budget for the pickleball courts up there? Did you say 150?
Where am I here?
Yeah. I think
Yeah, 150. And that one is the one I struggled with the most, that I think will get tweaked the most by engineering. It really depends on what we do in addition with the parking lot, if it becomes just a road base material or if it's asphalted. So that number I expect to be one of these that is tweaked the most, just depending on the options of
So
what's
the
on that lot.
150 includes the parking lot, or does it? That's just the
A
pickleball
very,
courts.
very rough estimate, yes.
Okay. I was gonna say, if he can put up 20 or 30% instead of putting that towards the 150, just maybe they can add a couple more pickleball courts for him for that price, for the 30,000 or whatever. Instead of putting 4, put 6. Yeah.
I think you got a fan, Chuck.
All right. Any other comments or questions on this topic? Okay. Thank you. That was great. I'd like to make a request, if it's okay if we table this next discussion, is it something that's pressing? Is there a time crunch with this? With the amenities at London Bridge Beach and Rotary Park?
There is not a pressing on mine. I was just, some of these amenities, it was just something that was getting rolled over each month, so I was just trying to clear off our plate a little bit.
From the
But-
agenda items we requested? Yeah,
Correct.
okay.
But there is no, from the city standpoint, there is no rush on any of these items.
Okay. Are people okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay with that, because most of the amenities would be summer amenities anyway.
Yeah.
You know, stuff for this lake and the summer, you know, the ideas that I had. But we can have it on next month's discussion. That would be nice. Just roll it over.
Yes,
At least it'd be a
please.
talking point for us, and I could get my ideas out there for
Yes.
our new chairman.
Is that okay? Okay.
Do we have a consensus on that? Just even nods would be
Yes.
fine? Okay,
Okay. Thank you.
no problem.
So for future agenda items, then we already have a couple with the amenities topic and then the community investment projects. Well, okay.
Correct.
Do we have other future agenda items that the board would like to see? Oh, I have two people going at the same time.
Go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Keel.
I'd like to hear where we are with teen break.
Yes,
Do we have a consensus of the board on that?
I agree.
Yes, I agree.
Certainly.
And yeah, Mr. Vaughn.
Yeah, I'm still getting some bugs in my ear about people running their dogs at Cypress Park on the fields and at the ball fields at Sarah Park. And that, is there any signs up there? Or do you know if there's an ordinance, or is it an ordinance? Can they get a ticket? Is there,
We
you know,
can't-
for,
We can't have the discussion here, but
Correct.
but
so-
that's what I'm saying, no,
the
I'd like to hear
signage?
about that, if there's any ordinance, what they're doing about, signage or anything like that to,
So just
at
dog-
those.
dogs on
yeah,
athletic fields?
To notify people, they're not supposed to run their dogs on the fields and stuff. Some kind of a report.
Maybe that's something that you, because I know that there is signage on those fields, so maybe that's a follow-up item. Could we, just that you could include in your staff report?
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, that's good, yeah.
Thank you.
You know, one more talking point that will probably get pushed later on down the road, but I'd like to at least maybe have it on there. It's a lifeguard program for the two swim areas that we have at the lake, Rotary and London Bridge Beach. It's a totally new idea for the area, so it's something that we might have to discuss for quite some time before we implement it. It'd be something that, a talking point maybe, lifeguard program. I don't know how you'd want to word that. I don't know if that'd be an amenity or not. So I didn't know if that was something we could discuss in the amenities. But for
Interesting.
a topic, education, kids, jobs, I could go on and on, but I'd love to have the ability to, if you could put it on the agenda. Talking point of lifeguard stations. I don't know.
Do we have
How
a,
does the rest of the board
board
feel about
consensus?
that as a topic for a future agenda? Looking at a lifeguard program for the two swim areas.
Are you talking about like a lifeguard stand like they have at the beach?
Yeah, like they have at the beach, except our beach. Exactly. Yeah. Every beach but ours. We'd like to see that as a talking point. You know,
See a
boats
lot
go
of
along with
questioning
it.
Faces. Let's, yeah. Yes or no?
You know-
Not saying you're for it, just you want to have a discussion about it.
I mean, you know, I don't want to go with this route, but a lot of people have died this year on the lake, and the cops are the only ones responding to these emergencies. So if we could have a talking point about lifeguards and,
and
you know,
no one,
EMS
no
on
one
the
has
lake.
died in our swim area. Let's be perfectly clear
Okay,
with
not
that.
in the
These-
swim
These
area,
have been boating
But
accidents.
we've had drownings in the swim areas that haven't resulted in death. And just because it hasn't gotten back to the parks doesn't mean that the people aren't driving off after saving or attesting somebody's life. We've got no life rings. There's plenty of talking points to go along with why we need lifeguards at the two swim areas. And I would just like to have that on the table. Because I personally had to rescue somebody this summer, and I had no floating device. There were no lifeguard ropes. There was nothing out there but me to go in there and save this guy and pull him up, and then his wife and cousins and kids all resuscitated him, and the ambulance came as the whole thing. But they didn't die, you're right, but they're, emergency response could go with the lifeguard discussion. I don't know if that's Parks and Rec or if that's city, so you guys let me know.
I
If
think
you
it's
want
interesting. I think
as a talking point.
I'm interested in the topic. It's something I haven't thought of before, but I feel like there's a lot of information that would go along with that. So maybe it's a future, in my opinion.
Yep. Because it's a summer type deal, so, but if we could start talking it over the winter, a couple months here and there, peekaboo at the topics, the discussions, it's something that would cost money, of course, but it's something that the lake doesn't offer, and personally, I like to see it be offered down there. If we could have a talking point, I don't know.
And maybe it goes along with the London Bridge Beach and Rotary Park discussion that we're going to have anyway.
Okay.
Yeah?
I think it's a little bigger discussion than
Been an
that.
amenity?
Yeah, I've been
So,
amazed.
but,
Well-
yeah. So if the board is in agreement that that is something they'd like to see, we can definitely bring it forward.
Here's my opinion. I wouldn't want to just have it an open discussion. If I would want information to even know if this is within our sphere and, the history, sort of like more of a full presentation, which I understand would take time, and I don't want to waste any staff time. So, if
Yeah, like a
I think maybe
presentation.
asking staff if that is something that you could just check into to see if there's a reason that we don't, and then bring it back to us at the next meeting to see if we want to talk about it further.
Yeah, I just, there's lifeguards already at the aquatic center. I thought it'd be a neat thing to just have outdoor duty, send 2 kids to the beach for the day. You
Yeah,
got it
I'm
in the
not
place.
questioning the idea.
So, I mean,
I
it's
just
something
don't
that's
wanna
already
send-
within the system and the realm. The aquatic center can be run by aquatics. So if you could look at what she's saying and get us info, then we'd know whether or not it's even feasible.
Yes, it is a completely different
Yeah,
open water than swimming pool lifeguards. Those 2 completely different certifications. It's a big project, but yes, I can definitely look into some of the reasonings that we haven't done it in the past, and
Yeah,
what
just
would be
start
maybe
there.
some of the.
okay. Yeah, is that okay? Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we'll decide later. Okay, any other agenda items? Okay, great. Next meeting, so October 22nd?
I'm gonna steal a little thunder here before Sherry gets to her part. One thing that I've kind of been tossing around in my head and talking to a couple of different board members, maybe some frustration on the purpose of the board, and with our discussion with City Manager Jessica Knutson and the direction last meeting to maybe have a work session on that, where we kind of all get together and really maybe focus a little bit more on what our purpose is here, and really sit down and have that conversation. And I would like to do that before our October 22nd meeting. If everybody would be open to that idea, I can send some emails around and we figure out a date and time that might work.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Would this be a work session just on its own, or not a work session at the council meeting?
No, it would be a work session on its own, just with this board, and we'd probably do it over at the Aquatic Center.
Just the sooner you can get those dates out, the better.
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Future meeting, October 22nd, 6 p.m.
Here still?
Yes.
Okay. A motion to adjourn by Mr. Vaughn.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Hi.
All right, thank you.